Alrighty, so now it's time to talk about the five stripes in the moving forward series, and that, of course, is Atlanta United. And I gotta say, this season for Atlanta United, you could argue this was probably the best season that Atlanta United has had since they won MLS Cup in 2018. And I know they didn't go too far into the playoffs, and they didn't finish as high as I think that they should have finished this season. I mean, a sixth place finish doesn't do justice of how good Atlanta United was this season, and it's unfortunate the fact that the first round matchup that they play ended up to be the what turns out to be the MLS Cup champion of this year. That is the Columbus Crew, and that I even say that that series is always going to be an entertaining series, and it definitely live up to the hype, and it's going to go down as by far the best of three series that we saw in the first round. But it was also a best of three series that unfortunately someone had to lose, and unfortunately, Atlanta United was on the losing end of that. But in terms of the records this season, they finished with a 13, 12, and 9 record and finished with 51 points. They scored 66 goals this season. So to tell you why multiple time this season I've said that Atlanta United is truly back, just look at how they played this season. It feels like this is as close as a Tata Martino kind of a team in terms of the free flowing goal scoring that we've seen with Atlanta United teams in the past. Now, obviously, the problem for this season, and I think this is probably the reason why they weren't as high in terms of where they were finishing in this season, and maybe even go a little bit further than they should be. Is their defensive record. They've given up 53 goals this season. So while they were playing that free flowing soccer that Gonzalo Pineda put on this team, similar to what Tata Martino did back in 2017 and 2018, they were also leaking a lot of goals to 53 goals that they gave up, which is, I think, the third worst in the Eastern Conference. I think only Toronto and then Inter Miami are the only team that gave up more goals than what Atlanta United has had this season. But they still did finish with a positive goal differential, a plus 13 goal differential, and they finished sixth in the Eastern Conference. Now, in terms of the head coach, it's Gonzalo Pineda since 2021. And in terms of the chief soccer officer, it's still somehow Carlos Bocanegra. I mean, I don't know how he still survived in that job. I mean, he's been pretty much dancing the raindrop throughout his tenure, and especially with pretty much all of the Atlanta United fan base at times were calling for his heads, especially last season. Somehow, in some way, he's still the GM of this team, and he's been there since the team was founded in 2015. Now, in terms of top goal scorer this season, it's Georgios Yakimakis, who would have thought that, Atlanta United instantly found their Joseph Martinez replacement in Yakimakis, putting Joseph Martinez type number with 17 goals. And I argue he could have won the Golden Boot if he didn't get injured at point of last season, because he was really dialed in and really kind of reminds you of that Joseph Martinez kind of player that Atlanta United has had. But in second, you got Thiago Amado with 11 goals, followed by Tyler Wolff with 5 goals. Brooks Lennon with 4 goals, and then rounds up the top five is Caleb Wiley with 4 goals. Top assist leader, unsurprisingly, it's Thiago Amado, who not only leads the team with the top assists, but I think he has the most assists out of anybody in the league. I might be wrong though. I think Lucho Acosta might be close to that, and maybe that's kind of the difference, because Thiago Motta was definitely in that MVP conversation, and you could argue it was really between him and Lucho Acosta in terms of winning the MVP award. And unfortunately, since Lucho Acosta was in that supporter shield winning team, I mean, it's not just about an individual season. I mean, you of course need to put up really good numbers, but you also want to be on a team that are definitely winning a lot of things, including winning some silverware. And in the case of Lucho Acosta, able to guide that team to a supporter shield win. And for Thiago Almada, he still were able to guide this Atlanta United team to the playoffs. But I think the difference maker was with the way Lucho Acosta would get Cincinnati to the supporter shield, and that was seemed to be more impressive. But then you got Brooks Lennon with 10 assists. I mean, he's been a consistent good player for this Atlanta United team, and arguably probably one of the best wingback player. I mean, between him and Julian Gresso are considered to be the best wingback player, and it's hard to believe that Brooks Lennon has been a perfect replacement for Julian Gresso that left this team a couple of years ago. Then they have Andrew Goodman with 5 assists, even though I probably shouldn't have put him on the list because he's not Atlanta United player anymore. Then you got Sabalov Janidze with 4 assists, and then around the top five is also Caleb Wiley with 4 assists in the top five. Now, in terms of the last five season, well, it's been kind of a mixed bag in terms of the last five season. Again, this season they finished sixth with a 13, 12, and 9 record and finished with 51 points. In 2022, it was a very disappointing season. They finished 11th with a 10, 10, and 14 record and finished with 40 points. In 2021, they finished in fifth place with 13, 12, and 9 record, and they finished with 51 points. And up to that point, it looks like that was the year when Gonzalo Pineda took charge of this team, and it looked like they were heading the right direction, only to basically crash and burn against NYCFC, and then of course what happened in the following year. But in 2020, this was the disaster year. I mean, this was the year that you could argue be the worst year in this young Atlanta United franchise, finishing 12th place with 6-4 and 13 record and finished with 22 points. I mean, I still remember that was the year where Gabriel Hanse was the heck, or actually no, that was not the year that Gabriel Hanse took charge. I think that was 2021. 2020, I think it was near the end of the Frank de Boer era, and I remember how bad that end up to a point where in that MLS's back tournament, if you want to know if teams are really taking that MLS's back tournament seriously, I'm pretty sure Atlanta United was definitely taking that seriously because Frank de Boer not only lost all three games, but also not score a single goal in those MLS's back tournament group stage game that Atlanta United was had, but he was fired because of it. And I think that is the only head coach to this day, and this will definitely be on a trivia question. Who is probably the only head coach to be fired after the MLS back tournament? Yep, it is of course Frank de Boer. And again, that was just part of a disastrous season that Atlanta United has had. But prior to that, it was still pretty good. I mean, in 2019, they did finish in second place with an 18-4 and 12 record and finish with 58 points. They didn't make it to the Eastern Conference Final, albeit, under the that was the first year under Frank de Boer, and even though I mean, they definitely didn't play as well as what we've seen with any Atlanta team. I mean, I would argue the one that we saw in 2023 was a whole lot better than what we saw in 2019 because the one we saw in 2019 it was a very different Atlanta United team. It was kind of like that grind and get resort Atlanta team, which that definitely did not please a lot of Atlanta United fans because they were so used to the free flowing soccer that they seen with Tata Martino prior to him leaving after lifting the team first and only MLS Cup in this young franchise history. Now, in terms of average attendance, 47,116. Now, the average attendance is still impressive. I mean, it is still not only the best in the league, but among some of the best in the world. But, the attendance have started kind of gone down a little bit. I mean, there were, at one point, they were averaging 52,000, and, Atlanta has had almost the same amount of games where they actually opened the full bowl, and there are games that they have 70,000 plus inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But I will say that when you look at the stadium, I mean, it's still relatively packed. But I have definitely noticed there has been more empty red seats at times where I feel like even though they basically they published the fact that they it was a sold out crowd. There was like 40,000 inside the stadium. I'm not sure though. I mean, I've definitely saw some red empty the red seat inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But that being said, I will say that in terms of the attendance wise, it is still considered by far the best in the league. And you got to say, Atlanta United has really set the standard of the attendance in the league since day one, and that they're going to continue to set the standard, especially after coming out of what a great year that this team has. I would not be surprised the attendance is going to go back up to the 50,000, especially it looked like this team is basically heading on the right direction heading into next season. Now, in terms of MVP, it's pretty easy. It's Thiago Almada. I mean, again, if it wasn't for Lucho Costa having a very similar type of year that Almada has had, Almada probably would have won the MVP this season. Disappointment. There were definitely some disappointment on this Atlanta United team. I mean, mostly I would say some of those U22 initiative players that they had was still kind of disappointing, but that was kind of expected because those were kind of the players that are part of when Atlanta United was kind of recklessly spending on young South American player and hope that they can develop and sell them off to Europe because that's kind of this is the team that pioneered this kind of ways to of course make this this league to become a selling league, and especially getting these hidden gem in South America and develop them, eventually sell them off to Europe. But as I've also said, Atlanta United has stagnated in terms of that compared to when they were really the first team to do so. But instead of going with those players that most likely is going to be flush out by this off season, I got to go with Miles Robinson. And even though I know he's no longer with this team, he just joined with FC Cincinnati last week. It's been a disappointing season for Miles Robinson. I mean, it's been a huge fall from grace for him to a point where I don't think he's actually no longer to be the starter for the U.S. men's national team. I think he got relegated in terms of the bench. I mean, he's still part of the national team conversation, but definitely not in terms of solidifying that role like what we saw a couple of years ago. And this is where I'll say what I said in the news of the week before. Let's see how Miles Robinson is going to bounce back because of just a rough season that he has with Atlanta United. I would also give an honorable mention or a dishonorable mention in this case with Brad Guzan, who I really think that this maybe could be the last season that he's going to be wearing an Atlanta United jersey and the goalkeeper for this team. I mean, I know he's a legend for this Atlanta United team, but he's getting to that stage where he's started to become a little bit washed up, and that I won't be surprised Atlanta United might be thinking about finding a goalkeeper for him in the near future. Now, in terms of young players to watch, there's a couple of Atlanta players that I would say that you definitely need to watch out for, and one of those player is Caleb Wiley. I've said it before last season. You got to watch this kid. This kid it has a lot of potential to do well, and it's kind of been an interesting season for him. I mean, he started red hot in terms of the goal scoring form, and then as the season goes along, he started to not produce those goal scoring production, but that's mainly because he played more on a defensive end role, or at least that's what Gonzalo Pineda want him to be more on a defensive end role, which is fine because when you're a team that is basically leaking goals left and right, you need to maybe decided to pull some of your fullbacks maybe a little bit more back and maybe not let them be as adventurous as we've seen them before, but still, very excellent player and a guy that I will not be surprised this could be another great player that the U.S. has in their hand, and that he could definitely, if he does reach up to his potential, definitely a national team quality kind of player. So what went right for this Atlanta United team? Again, the sign of the old Atlanta was back this season. There's been multiple times I mentioned that it feels like the Atlanta United is truly back, and I know that's kind of almost like a curse word because every time I say it and every time we say it, they falter in the next couple of games. But there were times where I think this season, when you look at some of their performance, I mean those were some performance that were going back to the Tata Martino days where they were dominating possession, they were suffocating their opposition and was goals scoring at will. I mean, that is something that I'm pretty sure Atlanta United fans are very happy to see those team back because those team were not only a fun team to watch, but they were the standards in MLS. They were like in the upper echelon and in a league of their own in terms of being by far the best team in the league. And then of course Thiago Almada putting Miguel Almiron number again. Thiago Almada feels like he's a second coming on Miguel Almiron. It feels like they finally found the right replacement for Miguel Almiron. I mean, it only took them 5 seasons, but they feel like they have landed a guy that I will not be surprised he's going to be moving on to Europe as soon as this winter transfer window. I mean, there's a lot of offer right now for Thiago Mata, and it's also helped the fact that he was part of that World Cup team that won the World Cup, and even though he didn't play a single minute in the World Cup, I mean, that's definitely going to up your value, especially with how he played this season. And then, as I mentioned, Giorgio Yakimakis also putting Joseph Martinez number. I mean, who knew that Atlanta United would instantly found their replacement for Joseph Martinez? I mean, I knew coming into this season, Yakimakis. We know that he has a good reputation during his time in Europe and with Celtic, but there was a question whether or not if he can replace the huge shoe that Joseph Martinez left on this Atlanta United team. And the answer is yes, and in an emphatic way. I mean, just an incredible season. And again, he could have easily won the Golden Boot this year and would really challenge Denise Bawanga for that Golden Boot race if he didn't get injured at some point of last season too. So what went wrong for this Atlanta United team? So as much as they were a free scoring team, the defense and goalkeeping was bad. This team, I mean, again, and I think that's kind of the thing that maybe Gonzalo Pineda might be thinking about next season to change his tactics, because while his tactics at time focus more on the attacking threat, sometimes it maybe focus a little bit too much on the attacking threat, and that not to mention this defense, it hasn't been good whatsoever. I mean, it's nothing thing compared to what we saw in 2018. Where remember in 2018 when they had guys like Jeff Lorenovitz uh manning the back line and was just being a rock of that team. Still haven't really kind of filled his shoe, maybe besides Miles Robinson having a couple decent seasons. But again, as I mentioned, Miles Robinson had a really disappointing season, and Brad Guzan have clearly lost a step or two in these last couple of years. I mean, there were times I've mentioned so many times that I feel like Brad Guzan could have done much better in terms of some of those goals that he conceded. And this is again where I will not be surprised. This maybe be the final season for Brad Guzan, and maybe this might be the year he might be thinking about hanging up his boot. I mean, he's had a legendary career, but as what we said about Tim Howard back in 2017 when he was really washed up doing his time with the Colorado Rapids, I think maybe it's time to hang up those boots and maybe even go into a coaching role that we could potentially see Brad Guzan go in. Inconsistency was still a problem at times. So again, anytime when we said Atlanta is back, they basically falter in the very next game. So yeah, that's going to be something that they're going to have to fix. I mean, if they want to get back to that old Atlanta team that just dominate team every single week, can't be inconsistent as they were last season. And again, the talent is there for this team to be good, but the inconsistency is definitely one of the downfall for them to potentially proceed themselves back to being the fear factor in the Eastern Conference and the team that just no one wants to play because of how good Atlanta United used to be. And then, of course, the Leeds Cup campaign. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of Atlanta fans will not talk about the Leeds Cup campaign, or probably even saying what Leeds Cup campaign, because yeah, it was a disaster, and it's unfortunate that they got paired up with Inter Miami. And when you're paired up with a team that is a team of destiny like Inter Miami, and especially with Messi and his friends on that team, yeah, you're gonna get absolutely rolled over, and they got absolutely rolled over in that Leeds Cup. Now the good news is they did get their revenge later on in the season, but man, that Leeds Cup game against Inter Miami, that was probably the worst that they look all season long, and easily one of the worst games that they have looked under Gonzalo Pineda. And it's also followed up by not being able to beat a Cruz Azul team that was also considered to be faltering eh, for the last couple of years, or even in the last season or so in Liga MX. And then, of course, the other thing that kind of went wrong. I mean, I don't know if this counts as went wrong, but Atlanta fans kind of getting heart attack every stoppage time early in the season. So I mentioned before in the early part of the season, you cannot stop watching an Atlanta United game. Like you cannot just move away and think that it's done in an Atlanta United game, because my God, early in the season you could argue that, I mean, Atlanta United games are always fun to see, but the fact that every single game that Atlanta United has had, especially at home early in the season, even throughout the season too, that every season at the 90th minute mark there has to be a goal that is scored either by Atlanta United or the opposition. I mean, it was must watch TV if you're a neutrals of seeing just crazy drama every time when you watch an Atlanta United game. Now, obviously for Atlanta fans, I'm not sure they really enjoy that kind of thrill ride. And I even said before with the Mateus Almeida experience when he was with the Quakes, as much as Mateus Almeida was playing this crazy brand of man marking soccer that might be fun for neutral to watch, yeah, it's not really fun when you're actually rooting for the team, and you're basically are in this roller coaster ride of, at times this might be the game where you might score a 90th minute winner or equalizer to salvage a point or get all 3 points, or it could be a game where they just collapse and drop 3 points, or even drop 2 points because they gave up a late goal, because that's how Atlanta United game was early this season. Now, moving forward, for this Atlanta team, obviously they need to find a replacement for Miles Robinson and the back line. It feels like they are looking into that. In fact, I even mentioned in the News of the Week episode a couple of days ago. Oh, actually, yeah, a couple of days ago that they are going to bring in a guy from Bordeaux that is a Norwegian center back. I think it's Stian Gregerson that was the guy that they're trying to bring back. And I even said that that's an iffy kind of replacement considering he was part of a Bordeaux team that was historically bad in terms of conceding goal in a single goal season. I mean, how bad it was. Well, try 90 plus goal that Bordeaux conceded, and he of course was part of that team. And then of course, when will they cash in on the Almeida kind of big transfer? So it's imminent that Thiago Mata is going to move on from Atlanta United, and there's no doubt a lot of team is looking to try to get him. I won't be surprised. It's going to be even more than when Miguel Almiron has got. I mean, if Miguel Almiron is worth $27 million, which at that time was a record transfer fee, I think this could easily be 30 or $40 million, and we might see another record being set in terms of outbound transfer because that's how good of a player that Thiago Amada is. And that when they do eventually cash in on the Almeida money, or not Almeida, Almada money there, can pronounce his name correctly. For a second, it's also not easy to pronounce it when I keep thinking of our old San Jose Earthquakes head coach. But yeah, can they spend that Almada cash wisely, unlike what they did with the Almiron cash? So when they sold Miguel Almiron for $27 million, they definitely signed a lot of play or around to improve the squad and also signed some players to replace him. But unfortunately, those players that they try to replace him, yeah, first they try to do Ezequiel Barco as a replacement for Miguel Almiron. And yeah, Barco was not only underwhelming, but he had disciplinary issue. And then they got arguably even a worse player than what Barco was in Pity Martinez. I mean, remember when Pity Martinez joined Atlanta United and he was coming into this team and was voted the South American Player of the Year, and everybody thought that this was finally the signing that they're gonna get it right in terms of replacing Miguel Almiron. Nope. Instead, Pity Martinez had a very underwhelming season, and I would say that he's definitely going to go down as one of the biggest busts that we have ever seen in this league. And that, yeah, again, this is the thing, is that this is the time where if they do get the money for Almada, they have to spend it wisely. They cannot go reckless like they did last time. And this is also where I got to go back to Carlos Bocanegra and the fact that he's been very lucky. The fact that he is still surviving this run, as much as he's taking a lot of heat. He's gonna continue to take heat, and especially with the way that he's got to learn from his mistake that he did last time when he did not spend the Almiron cash wisely and improve the team. And in fact, I would go as far to say that if he get this one wrong with the way that he doesn't do well with the Almada cash and once again set this team back like what we've seen once Almiron left this team and past 2019 kind of Atlanta United form, don't be surprised he could be axed finally as the chief soccer officer and the GM for this Atlanta United team. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at Atlanta United, and like I said, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this moving forward series of Atlanta United, or if you're a Five Stripe fan, what do you think went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this Atlanta United team going to look heading into the 2024 season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.